This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's hour number 2 of Live Bet Sunday right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And what better way to start it off than by going to the Progressive guest line and being joined by this great man, as we've got Jonathan Davis aboard. He does an absolutely tremendous job doing our hockey coverage right here at VSiN. Additionally, he does some great work over on SiriusXM as well. Jonathan, it's always a pleasure, my friend. And I love the Canadian shirt for those of you guys that are watching on VSiN.com, YouTube TV, what have you. Always great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, I had to break it out, with Montreal opening up the playoffs tomorrow. I think I said to you yesterday, Greg, born in Montreal, raised in Toronto, rarely put this thing on, usually, but figured, hey, it's playoff time. I'll jump on the bandwagon.
Absolutely. That is a good, clean family fun that we need right here on this network. And hey, you know what? Let's actually lead off with that. We'll head on to the Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild here in a minute, as we've got 2 hours before the puck drops there. So we've got plenty of time. But what are you taking a look at in terms of game 1 between the Canadiens and the Washington Capitals? With right now, Capitals about a minus 180 or so favorite. That total is 5.5, but very much juice to the over.
Yeah, Greg, this is one where I would jump on the Canadians right now to win the series. You're going to get that at nice, over $2 to win the series. And look, if they get up on Washington in this series, you could always come back with the Capitals if you can get them at plus money at some point. But I could definitely see an upset here. Washington's problem has been goaltending. They gave up 3 or more goals in 12 of their last 13 games. They had a stretch just before the Four Nations hockey tournament, and then coming out of the Four Nations where they gave up 3 or more goals in 11 straight games. So, it's just not a good recipe. We talked about this last night. This year has been pretty much all about Alexander Ovechkin, with the Capitals having clinched first place for quite some time. But the other approach I would have, my best bet for that game tomorrow night, is take the Montreal team total at over 2.5 at minus 110. I think it's just a phenomenal price. That's the way I'm going to attack game 1, Montreal at Washington.
I think that that's a good approach to take, and I think that that is going to be a fun series in general, as that's going to be a battle out east. And how about if we go from east to west? The late game that we are going to be seeing here on this Sunday is going to be the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. And I know you've got quite a bit of prop action on this one, as money line is starting to get a little bit hard to be able to squeeze out a lot of value on. You're right around about minus 220, minus 230 in terms of Golden Knights, but I know there's a lot of props that you're taking a look at for this game.
Yeah, the way I like to do it, first off, best bet for me in this game would be the Golden Knights in regulation. I got that at minus 125. So for me, that would be like a 1-unit play in this one. And then I like to spread out the props because, my feeling is that the props that I'm taking are all at nice plus money. If you can come away with a split, you're going to be ahead of the game. So I got Pavel Dorofeev at anytime goal at plus 230. I got Jack Eichel over 1.5 at plus 196. And then for the Minnesota Wild, they've got Zeb Buium. Zeb Buium is fresh out of Denver University. He's not only playing in his first Stanley Cup playoff game, Greg, he becomes the 152nd player to make his NHL debut in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You can get him tonight at over half a point at plus 186. And he's also on the first power play unit for the Minnesota Wild. So I like the value there with this kid, Zeb Buium. Kid who grew up in San Diego, would make the trek from San Diego to Los Angeles to practice and play his games for the LA Junior Kings in his youth hockey days.
That's absolutely incredible, and I always love those stories as well, because you get the Frozen Four that happens in late March, early April, and these guys get thrust sometimes right into the playoff action. That is going to be happening for them, so that is going to be a great scene. As Jonathan Davis, he does tremendous work here at VSiN, taking a look at this great game of hockey. He's joining me right here on Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and we do have a hockey game that's going on right now, as at the end of the first period, if you took the over in the Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators, you don't want to cash that ticket quite yet, but you have to be feeling pretty good about yourself, considering we got 3 goals in the first period there. How are you taking a look at this series between the Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because I think that this is going to be a very interesting one, and if the first period is any indicator, we're probably going to be seeing quite a bit of goal scoring in this series.
Yeah, I hope we do. My long-term approach for the series was to play the series to go both 6, bet it to go 6 and to go 7, each at plus 200, because I really do believe, I don't think we're going to see Toronto or Ottawa win this series in 4 or 5. So I like the plus money. This way I feel I'm going to come away, with at least, come away with 1 unit as long as this thing goes 6 or 7 games. So that was my long-term approach. I wrote about on the website today just a variety of different player props. I do like goals in this series. I didn't jump on the first period over. I wish I did. I was kind of hoping that we would get a slower start, and then I was going to try to live bet this game, but they got ahead of me. I'm looking forward to it. The Battle of Ontario, the only thing that we were missing, in a Brady Tkachuk game, go back to the Four Nations tournament, drop the gloves. We had the 3 fights, 9 seconds in. I thought maybe we would get something like that in this one, but no such luck. It's the only thing we're missing so far from the Battle of Ontario after 20 minutes.
Yep, absolutely. And being able to have those just interstate, intercity rivalries, in this case, inter-province rivalries, always do love to be able to have that as well. And what else I love is the fact that on Monday, it really gets started with the NHL playoffs, because in these first few days, we've had 2 games or 3 games. We're going to have 4 full games that are going to be going down on Monday. We just mentioned one of those games between the Canadiens and the Washington Capitals. How about if we take a look at this one? Because I know that you've been a little bit of a stand here for the LA Kings, and I know that you've had a little bit of belief in them. They're about a minus 115 to a minus 120 favorite on the money line here against the Edmonton Oilers. Take me through game 1 and what you're taking a look at in terms of this Oilers versus Kings series.
Yeah, so with this one, look, I took LA. I got a little aggressive here. I played LA to win the series in 5 and to win this series in 6. I got great plus money on both those series game prices. The only thing I'm looking at right now for game 1, Greg, is first period under for Edmonton, under half a goal. So Edmonton gets shut out in the first period. You get that at plus 115. The reason I'm going after that is that LA they gave up the fewest first period goals this year, Greg. They did not give up a first period goal in 19 of their final 22 games. So for right now, that's the one play I've locked in. We're still waiting to see what the Oilers lineup is going to look like for game number 1. We're not sure yet about some of their injured players like Evander Kane. Will he make his playoff debut? So I'm going to kind of wait a little bit. I'll wait until tomorrow after the morning skate. Teams usually will practice about 10:30, 11:30 local time and get a better idea of what their lineup will look like. So for now, the one I do feel best about, Edmonton not to score in the first period at plus 115.
Yeah, you mentioned it. 19 out of 22 games. No first period goal given up. That's pretty rock solid right there. And what was not pretty rock solid was the defense at the end of the game for the Dallas Stars. As the Dallas Stars, we both know, very banged up going into that series against Colorado Avalanche. They held in there for a while, and then they just let go of the rope in the third period yesterday. Now Dallas looking to get up off the mat as about a plus 120, plus 125 underdog in game number 2 against the Colorado Avalanche. Avalanche pretty sizable road favorites here. What are you taking a look at in terms of game number 2? Because I just have a fear that this might get a little bit ugly here for the Dallas Stars in this series.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about it last night, and Dallas is without their number 1 defenseman, Eero Heiskanen, who plays close to half of the game, and that's something that hurts a lot more come playoff time when you've got to face elite teams and the same team over and over, during an extended series. So that's a big disadvantage for Dallas. Now, the Stars have been notoriously a bad game 1 team. They've now lost, I think it's 8 straight game 1s in their playoff history. Not very good. They actually lost game 1 and game 2 to the Golden Knights last year. So for me, and Dallas, by the way, Greg, they felt they played their best game in a month, which is true. They did play their best game in a month. It was the first time in 13 games that they actually held their opponent to 24 shots on goal or less. They've been just very leaky defensively, like I talked about with the Heiskanen injury. So the way I'm going to approach it is that I'm going to go at the Colorado team total tomorrow, over 3.5. Right now, that's at plus 100. So, I don't have to give up any juice. I think they scored 5 in game 1. I don't see any reason why they can't get to 4 here in game 2. And the other prop I'm going to target will be Nathan MacKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche. Their star forward. MacKinnon had 6 shots on goal in game 1. The Avalanche, as I mentioned, had only 24 shots on goal. And of the other 11 forwards on the Colorado team in game 1, they combined for 9. McKinnon had 6 on his own. I like Nathan McKinnon over 3.5. It's at minus 140. I understand it's a little juicy, but 4 shots on goal for Nathan McKinnon in a hockey game is pretty commonplace.
And then we've got about 90 seconds left for this one. I'll give you the floor here. The Winnipeg Jets are massive minus 185, minus 190 favorites. And if I'm reading this correctly, you might be looking at a little bit of a money line underdog in this one.
Yeah, I'll go back with the St. Louis Blues. I think they're good. I like the plus 155. I just think it's a good price. I thought they looked good in game one. They had leads of 1-0 and 3-2 before falling apart late. So I'll go back with the Blues, a small play on them at plus money. And then a couple of props I'll throw out to you. Adam Lowry of the Winnipeg Jets, not one of the bigger scorers on the team, but this is a guy that loves the playoffs. 7 goals in the Jets' last 11 playoff games. Cashed them yesterday at plus 700. He's at plus 600 tomorrow. Kyle Connor, one of the big stars of the Jets, he also scored in game one. He's now got 7 goals and 11 points in the Jets' last 9 home games. Only plus 130 to score a goal, but plus money is plus money. And then Alex Iafallo, who plays on the top line with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, you can get him at plus 330 to score a goal. That's tremendous value for a guy who plays on the top line, scored in game one as well. And then on the blue side, Jordan Kyrou leads the team in scoring, scored in game one. We're getting him at plus 240. It's just the prices are too good to pass up.
Absolutely, and it's too good to pass up a chat with you, Jonathan. Always appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime. Have a great rest of your night.
Always great to have Jonathan aboard, and we're at halftime of the Cavaliers game. We'll check in on that next, right here on Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It was great to be joined by Jonathan Davis, taking a look at this great game of hockey and check in on that first period action between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. That was at 2-1, and we just got a goal up on the board. Second period just begins. Jonathan Tavares, he puts a biscuit in the basket. Now 3-1, the Maple Leafs in the lead, 15:53 remaining in the second period. Yeah, if you took that over of 5.5, don't cash that ticket quite yet, but you're looking pretty good right now. And for the Ottawa Senators, right now a little bit rough for them. They were sub 500 on the road this season. Again, still always have a little bit of issue thrusting in the Maple Leafs in any sort of playoff series, but so far so good for them. So 3-1, that is the score there. And when it comes to the game that we're going to be seeing a little bit later on tonight out there on the ice, the Golden Knights right now find themselves as pretty mondo, minus 220, minus 230 or so favorites. So we'll be checking in on that. Right now we've got halftime out there with the Cleveland Cavaliers and Miami Heat game, and it looked like the Miami Heat were going to be getting just absolutely destroyed, but they put together a little bit of a charge here late in the first half, and even though I didn't take it, it's a lot of what I've been talking about in terms of these playoff games. You just find that you're going to be able to get a lot of runs in these games in general. The Miami Heat, they were able to put together a nice little 6-2 surge towards the back half of the first half. They were down at one point as much by like 16, 17 points, and now they have clawed their way back to make it 62-54. And what I find to be very intriguing is the live total in this game, anywhere between 228.5 to 221. I do have a little bit of trepidation in terms of this total because with the Miami Heat, they shot 50% from three-point range in the first half, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to duplicate that. Like, you take a look at what the Miami Heat were able to do during the regular season. They were a fine three-point shooting team, but they were more of a mid-30s three-point shooting team. Tyler Hero's obviously a guy that has a high-volume scorer. Duncan Robinson is able, coming off the bench, he's able to pop it and lock it from three-point range, but this is also a Cleveland Cavaliers team that we all talk about how efficient that offense is. They've been pretty rock solid on the defensive side of things as well. So I've yet to just really find anything that I really like for this Heat versus Cleveland Cavaliers game. And personally, coming in, I thought that I was going to find a little bit more value in terms of that Warriors versus Rockets game, which that's going to be starting up in about an hour and 15 minutes. You're still holding relatively steady here with the Rockets being a 1 to 1.5 point favorite, depending upon where you're shopping. And still think that we're going to be able to find some good value on the Warriors in game. If we can find the Warriors, get down a little bit early. I don't know whether I'm going to go money line or if I'm going to go spread, but I think that I can get myself a good number there, and I'd be feeling relatively solid about that. Just unwilling to really dumpster dive here on the Miami Heat. We've been seeing a lot of, shall we say, fluctuation in this game, and I just have a big giant fear right now that they might just let go of the rope. I'm hoping that they put together a nice little surge here in the second half. If the Miami can get down by like 3-4 points, be able to make this like a line where I'm able to get a -9, -8.5 on the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'd be feeling relatively rock solid about that. I came into this game thinking that if I got a -8 or better on the Cleveland Cavaliers at any point, I'd be willing to take that. I'm thinking more around -8.5, -9 after what I saw in the first half. If I can get that, I'd be feeling very rock solid about a bet like that. But you know what? We shall see what is going to be happening in the second half, as that should be getting going within the next minute or two. And we actually have ourselves a pair of baseball games that are happening right now. We knew that we were going to be getting Sunday Night Baseball, but unexpected double dip based on the, shall we say, conditions that have been happening out there in Colorado, which, by the way, I still remember like 2 or so weeks ago, you had the old snow game out there in the Rockies versus the Washington Nationals. I remember I was going to college, and I personally helped out with regards to my college radio station in terms of the baseball front. We would have snow out games all the time over at UW-Oshkosh. Division III University, the 2019 Division III College Basketball National Champions. Very, very proud of that, but you sometimes get some funky conditions out there in the Midwest, the mountainous part of the country in general, so that leads us to having a little bit of extra baseball here today. And right now for the Padres, up by a count of 2-0. And we do have good news to report. It appears as though things are stable for Luis Arias. He's got function in all of his extremities and everything like that. He took a very rough collision, I think is the best way of putting it, in the first inning in this game against the Houston Astros. Sort of his cheek collided with the shoulder of Mauricio Dubon. They were fearing a little bit of the worst with regards to that, but it appears as though things are going to be fine. Probably not going to be playing in the next game for the San Diego Padres. You're going to be wanting to check in on his status, and when it comes to the San Diego Padres, they obviously have lifted him from this game. Gavin Sheets is now the man that is going to be in for the San Diego Padres. He's a rock-solid hitter. Like, he's been hitting right around 300 this year. Just getting away from the Chicago White Sox in general has been good for him. And I always think that that's very interesting when it comes to baseball, because you have some of these teams, and I mean, shout out to the Chicago White Sox. They were able to win here on this Sunday, but I believe that the stink just sometimes seeps through, and sometimes these really good players, they fall into, shall we say, the abyss of the stink. And you find that a lot with these guys who are on the Chicago White Sox. And the moment they get off of a team, like, sorry to say it, but the Chicago White Sox, when you get off of, insert your favorite won or lost team, the Royals before they were able to make the playoffs last year, teams like that, they all of a sudden become a little bit more motivated. They become a little bit better. I think that we are seeing that with Gavin Sheets this season. So that's something that I'm going to be eyeing up, as it is cashing out right here on Visa, the Sports Betting Network. And something else that you want to eye up, a little bit of money to be able to save you on a trip to lovely Las Vegas. Derek Stevens, he owns the place where I'm sitting right now. That would be Circa, also the Golden Gate and the D. He's offering 15% off of all three of these wonderful properties over at circalasvegas.com. If you type in the promo code VSIN15, you're able to save 15% off. Like all three properties I've been to, all three properties are tremendous. You've got the Long Bar over at the D. That's always a good time. Out here at Circa, you've got Stadium Swim. You've got the world's largest TVs and Golden Gate. It's one of the most historic places out here in lovely Las Vegas. You want to go to circalasvegas.com, promo code VSIN15. That'll save you 15% off your booking. And how about if we do dive in a little bit on what we've seen thus far from the Rockies versus Washington Nationals? Again, you've got the Washington Nationals now up by kind of 1-0, and Antonio Senzatella has just been a human pinata this year. Like, it's just absolutely incredible. The guy's giving up like 2 hits an inning. He gave up 2 hits. He only gave up 1 run, but right now, if you're looking at this Rockies versus Washington Nationals game, you want to be tracking the pitch count of Antonio Senzatella, because they had to use up a whole bunch of bullpen pieces in game number 1. Like, they had Kyle Freeland go for 2 innings. So Anel Shavili, who's not really the world's greatest long guy to fill 3 innings for the Colorado Rockies, there's a lot of guys that are not going to be available in the bullpen. He had to throw 26 pitches here in the first inning for the Colorado Rockies. If he gets his pitch count hovering right around about 90 in like the 4th inning, the 5th inning, this is a Colorado Rockies team that, I'm going to share a trade secret here, they're not good. Like, I feel like everyone knows that, but the Colorado Rockies bullpen, not something that you want to be trusting in. And if you do find them having to go into the depths of this bullpen with the likes of a Tyler Kinley and insert guy that you've never heard of here, yeah, that's not going to be a great scenario. And we'll see what the Washington Nationals are going to be able to get out of Brad Lord, who's not necessarily a natural starter, has been coming out of the bullpen a little bit more for the Nationals. They were able to get a little bit of length in game number 1 out of Jake Irvin, so that was able to help them out a little bit in. I do think that you saw for yourself a good opportunity with regards to the total as well. This was a closing total that was in the neighborhood about 10.5 to 11. If you're right now looking at that live total, it's up to 11.5. Personally, I do think that this is going to be a high-scoring expose after things were a little bit more muted in game number 1. And then if you are looking at the Padres versus Astros, getting started with regards to the top of the 4th inning, this was a closing total of more around a 7.5. Now we're down to 6.5, but you have to lay a lot of juice on that 6.5. Right now I'm seeing a minus 145. These are the sort of cases where I just don't think that the juice is worth the squeeze. Yes, you are getting a run better than what you were able to find prior to the start of the game, but now you've gone from being able to get like a 7.5, and you were able to get that 7.5 at right around about even money, minus 105. That's a difference of 40 cents in juice, and that's a big difference because if you were playing this pregame, and let's just spitball, you were able to get even money. So, I mean, if you're able to hit at anything north of 50%, you're going to be able to make yourself some relatively solid money. Like 50%, that is your break-even point, so that's something that is good for you, but if you're paying this minus 145 like I'm seeing right now, the way that you need to be playing this is you always have to think, all right, what's my break-even point? What do I need to do in order to be able to not just make a profit, but be able to get back to even? You need to hit on minus 145, 59.18%. I actually did the math on this one to make sure that I gave an accurate number. Like, that's a lot to be able to ask, and is that half run able to take you from being a 50% where you're breaking even to 59.2% in order to be able break even? I personally don't think so. And I do notice this with baseball totals. Maybe this is just me. Maybe this is just the games I'm looking at. I just feel like they go way in the heck over the total or they go way in the heck under the total. You don't get a lot of games that they land, oh, it was a 4-3 game. Oh, it was 5-3, something like that. You either get like 15-1 or you get 1-0, and you don't get a whole heck of a lot of in between. Like, maybe that's just the way that I view it. Again, maybe I just have a little bit of a warped sense of reality, but that's just what I've gathered in baseball, and that's a reason why I just don't feel comfortable laying juice in terms of a lot of these totals. As a matter of fact, I tried to extract as much plus value as possible. Like, if I set a total of like a 7.8, and if I'm able to get like an 8 over at like a plus 110 or something like that, I think that that's better value than taking a 7.5 over at a minus 120, minus 125. That's the way that I do look to play things, and do think that that's worth expanding upon a little bit. And now we're getting going in terms of the second half between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Miami Heat. We'll give you guys a little bit of a status update on that next, right here on Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. I promise you an update in terms of Cavaliers versus Heat, and I will get to that in a second, but we have been rudely intruded by the fact that the Toronto Maple Leafs, they scored again. William Nylander, he puts a biscuit in the basket. Fourth different Toronto Maple Leafs player to score in this game. You've got about 10 minutes remaining in the second period. It is all Maple Leafs right now by a count of 4-1. If you bet this pregame, you need one more goal to be able to get you over the total, and right now for the Ottawa Senators, they're having about as many holes in their defense as Swiss cheese. So that has not been great to say the least. So Toronto currently in full control in that one. And right now in terms of the money line, the Cleveland Cavaliers are in full control here. But in terms of this live spread, you've got pretty much a spread to where we're back to where we essentially started. Right now it's 76-65. You've got 6:11 remaining in the third quarter. Live line is hovering between 12.5 and 13.5 with the Cleveland Cavaliers laying in. This is a live total, by the way, that's still at a 220.5. I've been eyeing up deciding whether or not I want to pull the trigger on this game, and I think that this is a big thing. If you're looking to be able to live bet some of these NBA playoff games, sometimes you need to realize you just don't find what you like in a game. Like right now, I just have not been able to find what I've necessarily loved in terms of Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Miami Heat game. I was hoping that at some point I'd be able to get the Cleveland Cavaliers down like a -9, -8.5, something like that. I just don't know if that's going to be coming at any sort of point. And for the Miami Heat, they're still 10 of 20 from three-point range there. they have been a little bit less efficient actually from 2-point range rather than 3-point range. And just when I think what must come up must come down, I feel like it's just been a relative constant right now. I feel like everything has been relatively in line with what we've seen. So I've yet to find any sort of a, shall we say, differential for me to be able to pull the trigger on this game. And I think that that's fine. Like, if you just don't find what you like in a game, you're going to be able to have another crack at it and say the Golden State Warriors versus the Houston Rockets game that's going to be coming up in an hour. If you don't find anything in that game, you've got yourself Monday. If you don't find anything on Monday, you've got Tuesday. If you don't find anything in the NBA in general, you've got baseball. You've got playoff hockey. The NFL draft is coming up in the next few days. You've got a lot of different options. So I think that when it comes to live betting a game like this, you don't have to behold yourself to be like, oh, I absolutely must be getting my shekels down on something in this game. And I think that that's sometimes the sort of vortex that we find ourselves in. You're trying to be able to find something to where it might just not come. And that sometimes happens with regards to live betting. And right now I'm trying to see if there is going to be a little bit of an opportunity for that. By the way, we have not had a lot of free throws in this game whatsoever. The Cavaliers right now 6 of 7 at the free throw line, 7 of 10 for the Miami Heat. So the refs have been letting them play a little bit more. So I do like to be able to see that. But 6:11 remaining in the third quarter. Right now it is the Cavaliers in the lead on the Miami Heat by a count of 76-65. So we'll be trying to see if we can find any sort of value there. If I'm able to find any sort of live bet that I like, I will be relaying that to you guys right away. And right now, if I were to take a look at anything, I just still take a look at that total of a 220.5. It does feel like perhaps it's just a skoge too high, just because I do think that inevitably we are going to see the Heat come down with their 3-point shooting. But the reason why I haven't been able to pull the trigger quite yet is that I just relive the game ones of seasons past from the Miami Heat, and it always feels like they shoot like 50+% from 3-point range in every single game one. I don't know how, I don't know why, but they always find a way to be able to do so. So that's something that I'm gauging right now. We'll see if that value does come to the forefront at any point. We also do have ourselves a little bit of baseball that's going on. The Padres currently up 2-0 on the Houston Astros, bottom of the fourth inning. Right now that live total is sitting at a 6.5, and the Padres live money line, find that at a -270 if you want to take a shot on the Astros. And now they do have a man on second base, by the way. You're able to find that at +190. So we'll see how that matriculates. And the Nationals are up 1-0 in the second inning. And how about if we do take a look at a very early game that we're going to be getting in baseball on Monday as well, because I do think that there's a little bit of fun here with the Boston Red Sox actually losing to the Chicago White Sox on Sunday. You don't find that very often. And for the Chicago White Sox, I think that all but one of their wins this far this season has actually come against the Boston Red Sox. And the White Sox, congratulations to them. They don't have the worst record in all of baseball right now. That'd be the Colorado Rockies team that we're seeing right now. 3 wins for the Colorado Rockies as far this season. Man, you want to talk about deplorable. There you go right there. But in terms of this White Sox versus Red Sox game, in the Battle of Sox right now, you're finding the Red Sox as right around about a -270, -285 is the max I'm seeing in terms of them being a favorite. Now, the run line is about a -130. I did take the run line on Sunday with the Boston Red Sox. Got a little bit burnt there, but I'm willing to go back on it. Jonathan Cannon, he hasn't been a terrible pitcher for the Chicago White Sox, and we did see the White Sox be able to find a little bit of offense. Andrew Benintendi, ironically enough, the former Boston Red Sox, him being back in the fold for the team, I think is going to be able to help them out a little bit. But that said, with the Chicago White Sox team, even if you do get guys firing all cylinders, this is just a relatively rough game in general. If I'm not mistaken, I think that this is the Boston Marathon game. I might be mistaken on that, but this is going to be the game that starts at 11:10 a.m. Eastern Time, and typically when you get the Boston game that starts off this early, typically I attribute that with the Boston Marathon. So I have to think that there's something going on here, and with regards to this game, we've seen the Red Sox actually lose this game a few times in the past, and we're starting to see this number creep up in terms of that run line. Now we're finding a little bit closer to about a -135 in a few places as well. I'd be willing to go up to about a -140 or so. Walker Buehler had a little bit of a rough first 2 starts of the season, but last 2 starts, 11 1/3 innings, has only given up 3 runs. He's starting to look like the guy that we saw in the postseason after it was a little bit shaky to begin the season, and going against the Chicago White Sox, that'll always help out your confidence. And like I said, with Cannon, he's been able to get a few more swings and misses this year. Last year, he was getting about 6.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, up to about 8.8 strikeouts per 9. A young kid out of Georgia who was a 3rd-round pick a few seasons ago. So I do think that there's a little bit of upside there. And for the Red Sox, they haven't necessarily been doing the world's greatest job with their offense when they've been at home. When they've been at home, they had that massive outburst against the St. Louis Cardinals where they scored like 16 or 17 runs on Sunday Night Baseball. But other than that, it's been a little bit shaky for them. Rafael Devers is starting to look a little bit better in terms of finding a way to be able to get on base. But that said, with regards to the rest of this Red Sox lineup, you've had a few guys that just not stepped up this year. Tristan Casas giving you less than 250 on base. The entire catcher spot has been hit or miss. You've had Jaron Duran give you less than a 300 on base. He's not necessarily providing a lot of power like what Alex Bregman has been able to supply. And Alex Bregman is typically actually a very slow starter. Him being able to give you a 360 on base should be encouraging for the team, but that said, with the Chicago White Sox, again, what are you going to be able to get out of this lineup? As I was talking about this before, when you have a good player that's sometimes on a bad team, that stink just seeps into them, and that causes them to, in turn, stink as well. And I feel like that's exactly what's happening to Luis Robert, because Luis Robert, if you look at the actual attributes that he's able to bring to the table, if you look at his just skill set and what we've seen out of him, he's much better than the player that we're seeing right now, who's hitting a .145 with a pair of home runs. Like, ever since the White Sox got really, really bad, he's gotten really, really bad as well. So I do find that to be very fascinating. This is a game where I'm going to be taking a look at that run line, and I just don't think that the White Sox do their part with this total. Maybe I read a little bit too much into it as well, but also this being a game with a start time of 8:10 a.m. Pacific time, 11:10 a.m. Eastern time. I do think that that's going to bog down the offense a little bit more, and you're going to have some sleepy bats out there. So in on that under, and I'm going to be taking a look at the run line of the Boston Red Sox. Something else that we're taking a look at, the NFL draft right here on VSiN, because it is just mere days away. It is going to be going down on Thursday. We are going to be having some live broadcast specials for it with regards to our shows cashing out along with VSiN Primetime. It's going to be all NFL draft themed on Thursday, and right now you're able to get VSiN Pro access all the way through August 1st for just $59. That's a full summer of sharp betting insights at half the regular price. With being a VSiN Pro subscriber, you get everything: the daily best bet emails, exclusive betting splits from both DraftKings and Circa. You get expert analysis, betting systems, and so much more. Full access to the analytics page that we've got as well, and you get everything from the draft all the way to the Kentucky Derby and beyond. Every single sport, every single edge, one low price. That's over at vsin.com/subscribe. That is VSIN.com/subscribe, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And we are hitting a break right now in terms of this Cleveland Cavaliers game. And for the Cavs, they do find themselves now up 82-69. And I was sort of thinking in the back of my mind that this might be happening. The live total is starting to plummet with the Miami Heat starting to not knock down their threes. We are down to about a 215.5 with regards to this total. And right now with the Cleveland Cavaliers, they do find themselves up by a count of 82-69. So we'll see what happens here, and this is a live number with the Miami Heat being a plus 16.5. Just haven't necessarily found the flow in this game that I like, and it just feels like this has been a game that's a little bit choppy. Like, for me, when I can find good, clean flowing action and I can find some consistency, that's typically where I do like to be able to fire in, be able to find some live bets. And I'll be honest here, when it comes to live betting these NBA playoff games, oftentimes I find my best value in the fourth quarter as well. So we'll see if we are able to get a little bit of something here. Like right now, if I had to play it, I still would probably be leaning a little bit more to a live under in this spot as well. But now you're starting to get into a little bit of the danger zone. And I think that is very interesting when you take a look at these live totals as well, because if the Miami Heat for some reason get down 20, 25 points, that's when you empty the bench, and that's when the scoring really goes to die as well. So I think that that's something that you want to take note of. If you think that the Miami Heat are going to be coming back and are going to make this a bit more of a game, you might want to take a look at the live over. If you don't think that the Heat are going to be able to cover that plus 16.5, that this might turn into a bit of a blowout, might want to take a look at that under. Something else that we're taking a look at, playoff hockey. Kevin Rogers, he does a tremendous job of breaking down that and so much more. He'll join me next on Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Live Bet Sunday right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great to be joined by this man on the Progressive Guest Line. We've got Kevin Rogers aboard. He does a tremendous job over at OddsShopper. He's taking a look at a little bit of everything from Major League Baseball to hockey and so much in between. And Kevin, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you so much.
Greg, I followed you for a long time on social media, and now we finally get to talk face-to-face, so it's good and a lot going on, so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you aboard, Kevin. And Kevin, we'll leave this off before we take a look at some of these specific games and specific series. But just what have you made of the initial games that we've seen in the NHL playoffs? Because as we're doing this right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs are absolutely taking it to the Ottawa Senators. But I think that's been a very interesting postseason thus far. And we've seen just, shall we say, its own tune to, it feels like, every one of these series thus far.
Yeah, I mean, the St. Louis-Winnipeg series was back and forth in game one, and Winnipeg pulled away at the end. Obviously, all the chalk winning so far, and assuming Toronto holds on against Ottawa, you'll have 4-0 for the favorites, because now Colorado, with all the injuries with Dallas and how they fell apart at the end of the season, Colorado was favored in that series, and they ended up pulling away in game one. But, we always talk about in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Greg, that anybody can win. This isn't like the NBA, but at the same time, though, it hasn't been fun as far as the underdogs taking them so far through the first 3+ games. And you have Vegas as a huge favorite later against Minnesota. So, maybe does Minnesota pull off the upset in game one? Obviously, there's a long way to go in these series, but still, the chalk has risen, kind of like the college basketball tournament, and you hope that the Dogs will somehow come through, make these series a little more interesting in the first round.
Absolutely, and that is going to be the final game that we're going to be seeing tonight with the Vegas Golden Knights, who you mentioned. They're right around about -220, -230 favorites. Any sort of a lean or a play with regards to this one? Because I do think that it's a very interesting series, especially with Marc-Andre Fleury, who's not going to be in goal tonight for the Minnesota Wild, but the fact that he's on the team, and this could be his final series playing against the Vegas Golden Knights.
I don't like the side. It's just too rich for me for game one. I do like the first period under between the Golden Knights and the Wild. The last two meetings they had both finished with a goal in the first period. Minnesota, in fact, lost all three meetings with Vegas this year, so that doesn't bode well for them. But they got their star Kirill Kaprizov back last few weeks, which was big, obviously. Minnesota needed him if they wanted any chance to beat Vegas, but also with the Wild down the stretch, four of their final 6 games, they didn't score a goal in the first period. Vegas has been very good at home in the first period this season. I mean, I could definitely see this being a scoreless first, or at least Vegas leading 1-0. If you even want to go that direction and take Vegas minus a half a goal in the first period, you can. But also, like I said, are we going to get that underdog that's going to finally break through? Will it be Minnesota? I don't think so in game one, just because of their lack of success against Vegas this season. And we always know T-Mobile Arena, it's a crazy environment, probably the craziest environment of any of the teams that are playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But still, this series, Vegas, I expect them to go very far in this postseason. It's a tough Western Conference. Obviously, the East is tough too. But I do like first period under. I think we'll have that in that Golden Knights Wild matchup.
Yep, I think that is a very solid look, and it's a little bit of a feel-it-out process typically in terms of these game ones as well. And I know that you, Kevin, do a tremendous job for covering the Florida Panthers, as I know that you do a great job with a lot of their broadcasts. So how about if we do flip it forward a little bit more to Tuesday in terms of that Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida matchup, as you got a battle for the great state of Florida that's going to be happening there. And out of all these series, this is one of the most pick'em games you're going to find, with the Lightning right now on the money line right around about -105 to a -115. How do you take a look at the game for Tuesday, and for two, just the overall the series between the Panthers and the Lightning?
No matter what the Panthers say, Greg, I just can't believe this is a favorable matchup for them. I would have rather seen the Panthers play the Maple Leafs in the first round than the Lightning, because of the lack of success they've had in the playoffs. Now, obviously, they knocked the Lightning out in the first round last year, but before that, they were eliminated by Tampa Bay a few times in the playoffs. One time in the second round, they were swept. And it's just been a problem with Tampa Bay. Yes, they got over on them last year, but the Panthers were just better than the Lightning, where I don't know if that's the case this time around. Tampa Bay with 4 goal scorers, 35 goals or more. And with the Panthers, they have no Aaron Ekblad the first 2 games as he finishes off his suspension. He'll be back for game 3. Matthew Tkachuk should be back for game 1. You hope he's back. He's been practicing with the team. He's been out since the Four Nations tournament when he got injured there, and you could tell it took a hit on the team a bit. The Panthers were in first place in March or so, and they slipped to third. Toronto played well down the stretch. Tampa Bay played well. The Panthers were okay. It's not like they were terrible. It's just those teams played well, and the Panthers kind of stubbed their toe a little bit. So to answer your question, game one, I still think the Lightning will win it. I still think the Lightning will probably end up advancing. Now, it's one of those things, Greg, that if the Panthers can win this series, I think they can go pretty far. But also, I can see them getting knocked out in this series. I know that kind of sounds, it doesn't sound very brilliant. But at the same time, I don't think that they win this series and lose the next one. I think if they win this, they will beat the winner of Toronto and Ottawa in the second round. I really believe that because it's a more favorable matchup against those teams. But you still have Andrei Vasilevsky in the Tampa Bay net, who's one of the best goalies out there. Sergei Bobrovsky is great for the Panthers. There's no denying it. The Panthers have plenty of scoring power, and we'll see what Tkachuk can bring whenever he returns to the lineup. But still, they've had problems with Tampa Bay in the playoffs, and I just don't think that they will find a way to get past this team in the opening round.
And I think that that's well said. I always believe that in sports in general, you always want to take the boxing mentality of matchups to make fights, and certainly that is the case for the Florida Panthers here, as we do have Kevin Rogers, who does a tremendous job covering the Florida Panthers and so much more, joining me right here on Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And friendly reminder that you're able to take VSiN with you anytime, anywhere. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber. You're able to utilize the VSiN Watch app to be able to put us on your smart TV, to be able to watch and listen on the go, and so much more. 24/7 live access to all of our audio and video streaming services, the big screen experience that I was just mentioning, and you get quick access to clips by sport tailored to your interests. Watch VSiN wherever you are and download the VSiN Watch app, whether that be on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, as we do have Kevin Rogers joining me right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And in terms of what we're going to be seeing on Monday, this is where the NHL playoffs really starts to get good, because we've had 2 or 3 games here in the first few days of the NHL playoffs. We've got 4 full games on Monday, and is there anything in particular that you're going to be taking a look at in terms of Monday's slate? Because we do have ourselves the Dallas Stars trying to get up off the mat after they've lost in game number 1. I do find it to be interesting what we're going to be seeing in that Winnipeg Jets and that St. Louis Blues series as well, because it felt like the Blues, even though they didn't get the job done in game number 1, that they're just going to be competitive and feisty in this series.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to talk about, because you have 2 series continuing and you have 2 new series. I guess first, for the 2 series that are going to game 2s in the West, that Winnipeg survived that game 1 against St. Louis, where it was 3-3. And if you had Jets puck line, you thought you were dead in the water, but they get a late goal, and then they got number 5 to win at 5-3, so you feel good about yourself. I don't know if St. Louis, I don't think it really bounced back from that one, because that was a tough game. That maybe you go to overtime, you have a shot to steal game 1, instead you lose game 1 by 2 goals. So now you got to try to come back for game 2. It's a crazy environment there in Winnipeg. As far as the Dallas-Colorado series, I think we see where Colorado is going to probably out-talent Dallas, simply with the Stars' injuries and how bad the Stars have been down the stretch. I do lean, though, Greg, towards Dallas first period on Monday night, and I think they'll get off to a better start. It was a scoreless first period on Saturday, and Colorado pulled away for a 5-1 win. I think Dallas will come out firing in the first period, so you get them as a short underdog there. I don't think that's a bad play. Now, as far as the other 2 games, just to hit on quickly, Montreal is so interesting because they played very well down the stretch. They won 7 of their final 10 games, and Washington was on cruise control. Washington was the final wild card team to get in last year, and they ended up having a tremendous season this year. They won the Metro, but now a lot of pressure on them. The Ovechkin record is now done, so they don't have to worry about that anymore. It's a regular season record, but now that's over with. But Washington still has a lot of pressure on them. Montreal playing with house money. And as far as Edmonton and LA go, they're playing again for a 4th straight season in the playoffs. Edmonton has knocked them out 3 straight years, but this is the first time LA has home ice advantage. So we'll see if that will mean something for the Kings. And if the Oilers Stars are healthy and McDavid and Draisaitl, then there'll be a tough out there in the first round.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you're able to get a playoff series for a 4th straight year. You just don't find that very often, but I know you, Kevin, you're doing a tremendous job out there on the ice. You also do a great job with regards to first fives on the MLB front, and really do appreciate the time today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks so much.
was great to be able to get Kevin Rogers aboard. He does a great job covering hockey, does a great job on the MLB front over on Odd Shopper, and so much more. And how about if we do take a look on the flip side at this Cavaliers versus Heat game? The fourth quarter has just gotten started. Cavaliers currently up 92-83. We'll see how this matriculates, and we'll try to be able to find you guys a live bet with regards to the NBA front, whether that be this game or in the Warriors versus Rockets series. That's up next right here on Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.